Have you ever built a house in The Sims 4 only to stare at a bare shell, completely stumped on what to do next? Today we're diving deep into customizing your builds, from wallpapers to freezes and everything in between. It's all about making your houses beautiful and your Sims happy. So grab a cuppa, fire up The Sims 4, and let's get simming. Let's get started on our build. As always, we're at our lot in Willow Creek. If you've been following this series from day one, you should have some kind of house here already. If not, no worries at all. I have a very simple roofed cottage shell, which I made during a previous video on this series, available in my gallery. You'll find the link below to grab it and place it on an empty lot. Or if you're feeling confident, you can quickly build one yourself. The link to the cottage build video is also in the description, so you can always go there, follow along, then come back. And now that you have an unfinished house, you can technically play in it with your Sims. It does need doors and windows, but otherwise, it's completely usable. Still, it's not exactly a showstopper, is it? And your Sims are definitely going to complain about it not being decorated. We're going to make it pretty for two main reasons. First, you'll enjoy playing in this house so much more if it looks nice. And second, your Sims will be much happier. Are you ready? Okay, let's talk wall patterns. Wall patterns can be found here in the build mode UI. You'll see different categories including paint, wallpaper, tiles, rock and stone, and so on. It's a good idea to familiarize yourself with all the different styles and categories, but it's all pretty straightforward. So there are three different ways that you can apply wallpaper. If you select a wall style and a swatch, the game will automatically let you place your wallpaper tile by tile. Now, this is useful in certain circumstances, but painting an entire house this way is going to get super tedious. But if you hold Shift, you can paint an entire room with just one click. Now, you'll see it only paints this room because you clicked on a wall inside of the room. If you want to just paint one wall, though, you can use the Alt key on your keyboard, click a wall tile, and that entire wall in that room is now painted. You can also click a tile, and keeping your mouse button pressed, drag your cursor along the wall. Another thing I want to point out with certain wallpapers, for example, you'll notice I'm using the simple siding wallpaper that's an exterior wallpaper, and it has this edging here that kind of looks like a column. And as you're placing, you'll notice that it adds the edging automatically. Certain wallpapers will do this. It is a little bit weird sometimes the way that it decides, what to place these spandrels on. Like, for example, you'll notice it didn't place the spandrels, or not the spandrels, it didn't place the columns here on this bump out, but it did place here on this edge. But it didn't place here on this outer corner, but yet it did place on this inner corner. I honestly have no idea what the way that they do it. You can always go around and place columns if you want, to make it match a little bit better. It's just something that you need to be aware of. That's a little bit weird in this game. So now that we've got our walls done, next up, we have floor and ceiling tiles. So the floor and ceiling tiles are located right under the wall patterns in the build mode UI. We'll get to placing ceiling patterns in a moment, but first let's start with the floor tiles. So floor tiles have different categories such as wood, carpet, tile, and so on. Choose whichever floor and swatch takes your fancy, and we'll start laying the floors. So just like with walls, you can place the floor tiles one at a time, like so, or you can hold Shift to fill the entire room. Now, you can create fun patterns by doing one tile at a time and just change between them like so. Or you can use quarter tile placement by grabbing your tile, clicking Ctrl F on your keyboard, and you'll notice now that we can place quarter tiles. Like so. You can also rotate floor tiles with the comma and period keys. So let's say that we want to use these throwback cobblestone and brick pavers. Control F to get rid of the quarter tile placement. And by rotating the tile here, using the comma and period keys, you can place this however you like. Now, you can take as long as you want with the floors. Feel free to be as simple or extravagant as you want. And once you're finished, we'll continue with ceilings. Right, now ceilings are very similar to floors. You'll notice an option here to do ceilings by tile or room. Now, personally, I like to choose by room unless I have a complicated space to work with. Whichever you choose, you then select a ceiling that you want to use, and they're the same as your floor ceilings. And when you select it, you notice that you'll get this interesting pattern here. And I'm gonna choose a really dark one so that you can see it change. So you hover over with your chosen swatch, and the entire ceiling will change. Just click it, and the ceiling will be painted in whichever swatch you want. Now, to get back into the default build mode, just press your escape key like I did, and if you want to see what it looks like from a Sims point of view, hit the tab button to go in first person mode, and use your Q and E keys to get yourself into a good viewpoint, and then just look up, and you can see the ceiling there. Now, you can feel free to move around with your mouse and WASD keys like you would in a first-person game. Now, I almost always forget to paint the ceilings in my builds because it's a fairly new mechanic, and most ceilings in houses that I've lived in have always been white, so I don't tend to think about it too much. However, painting the ceilings in your build is a great way to add a personal touch, and it looks great in photos. So next up, we're going to talk about roofs and trims. Now, roof patterns can be found right here in the build node UI, just on the roof, and there's a wide variety to choose from depending on what packs you have. Unfortunately, roofs are one piece, which means you can only apply one texture per roof piece. I personally would love it if roofs work the same as floors, walls, and ceilings, but sadly they don't. So if you go ahead, pick a roof pattern for your house, whichever you want is fine, and just click each piece individually until your entire house is roofed. Attached to the roof are your roof trims. Now, these are going to give your build a super finished and sleek look, so always remember to put a trim on your roof. Now, which one you choose is really down to you and what type of roof pieces that you've put on, so don't be afraid to try different ones until you find one that fits your build that you like. So next up, we have the foundation and platform trims. In The Sims 4, there are two different mechanics that help give your build height: platforms and foundations. Now, I went over these in detail in the build mode UI video, but you can basically think of them like this. Platforms are like floors, which can be lowered or raised, and foundations are the foundations of your house. So before you can add a trim to your foundation, you're gonna need a foundation first. Get a foundation, click on your build, and then this middle arrow here. Hold and drag it to make your foundation as high as you want. Then to find the foundation trims, you go under the flooring in the build node UI, then choose whichever one that you think looks best with the style you're going for. Now, sadly, we don't have a lot of foundation options in the Sims game. The more packs that you own, the more options that you'll have, but we still don't have that many. Maybe one day we'll get a foundation update and the devs will give us a bunch more in base game for free. We can wish, right? So the platform trims are a little bit more difficult to find. If you go to the walls and empty room section in build mode, then navigate to the platform trims down here at the bottom. Why the platform trims are there and not under foundations, I don't know. It's a weird way of organizing in my opinion, but there we go. So here are all of our platform trims. And again, we don't have that many to choose from. In fact, we actually have less platform trims to choose from than we do foundation trims. And the main difference between foundation and platforms for decoration is that you can use half walls on platforms. So this means that you can apply any wallpaper you want as a platform trim by using half walls. And speaking of half walls also have their own trims. So again, we don't have very many. You can actually do a lot of mixing and matching with different wallpapers and trims here. And by the way, you cannot connect half walls to foundations, just as a general rule. So moving back to our roof, we have roof details or roof sculptures. The roof sculptures category gives you a lot of objects that you can add to your roofs to tell a story or really personalize your builds. Again, the more packs that you own, the more options that you're gonna have here. Now, I am not gonna go into every item in this category, but feel free to explore it, try out all the different things, see how they look on your roof, and feel free to add a few of your favorites. So, wall sculptures are items you can place on the side of your house. Think flower boxes, awnings, vines, and so on. Now, finding this category in the UI is simple. It's marked with a flower box here on the side, next to the door and below the windows. And if you click on it, you'll be able to find a bunch of really cute items that will help your build come to life. Now, there are a few last things that I want to show you. These are your wall trims and your exterior trims. So over here in the UI, you've got the Friezes and exterior trims category. Now, these allow you to add trims in 2 different places, and I'm going to try to explain this as best as I can because, to be honest, it's a bit complicated. Friezes are placed on a room itself, just like this, and you can place Friezes almost all the way around your build. They are very, shall we say, picky sometimes. You can notice here that it glitches out here. Yeah. So Friezes are placed on the room itself and don't require to be anything above it. But they can only be put on your build if the walls are medium or tall wall. Exterior trims, however, can be placed no matter how tall your build is, but they can only be placed if there's a room above where you want to place the trim. So for example, I can place a trim here, but I can't place a trim here on the roof, for example, or down here on the lower level, because it says must be applied to a room above ground floor. And you'll notice there is no room here. There is a room here, so I could put a trim here, although you wouldn't see it because it's covered up by a roof. And the reason we can put it here is because there's a floor there and there is a wall here, which is technically another story. It is very complicated, and the only way that you're going to learn how to do it is by doing it yourself, so please feel free to experiment. So if exterior trims can only be used if there's a room above the trim, you might be wondering what's the point of using them except in specific circumstances. After all, it looks funny if there's a trim here and then it stops right here and then continues back over on this side, and you can't put a trim here. Now, there is a workaround. The workaround is this. If we take this flat square and I size it so that it's the exact same shape and size as this here, now it allows me to put the trim on. And the reason this works is because using that square platform, the flat square platform, makes the game think that there is a room above this one, even though there really isn't. But it's enough so that you can now add the trim. Now, I know that this is a lot of information, and you might be thinking, how am I going to remember to do all of this in my builds, or even remember how to do these things? Don't worry, I've thought of that. So I've created a checklist that you can go through for each of your builds that not only gives you a step-by-step process, but also includes handy keyboard shortcuts. So if we look, for example, at the walls and wallpaper checklist, a portion of the checklist here, it says that you can use Shift to paint the entire room, Alt to paint a single wall, and so on. You can find the link to this checklist in the description, and if you find it useful, please let me know in the comments, and maybe give me a super thanks to show your support. if you can afford to do so. As always, special thanks to my paid members who help make videos like this possible. If you click the plus next to the subscribe button, then click the join button, you can join the ranks as well. And finally, if you're having problems with roofing your builds or you're looking for some roofing ideas, you can click here to watch my video on that.